Hey everyone, this is Manny,
Justin,
and welcome to today's episode of Vventitoutpodcast. And today's topic is actually one that I feel personally attached to. It's been a big piece of topic for a very long time in terms of growing up, how kids are, how they grow up to be, and if it's really harmful. And what I'm talking about here is video games and all the negative things that are surrounded by it, or at least in my opinion, misconceptions.
Yeah, what we can now call stereotypes.
And so what I want to really bring up is, I grew up around it. You have all these people saying, oh man, like video games, they teach violence.
Yeah.
They are to blame for all these people that are out, or all these kids that act out, that bully, or even linked to our entire mass shootings and everything.
Yeah.
Because some people are saying, games like GTA and all that stuff. And
they link it to lack of socialism, to loneliness in children.
Yeah.
To making them want to not, stay away from people because of the video games. But
yeah, and look, and I want to talk about it, and we want to, eventually have, have all these professionals in our topics. I feel like I am one of the professionals when it comes to this topic, because I can personally relate. I've been playing games since I ever got, my cousin. I remember, back when I lived in the apartments, back in, this is 6th grade, I didn't necessarily have, a video game console. Although in India, I had, those pixel games, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The race car and all that,
mm-hmm.
the freaking...
Kind of like Atari.
And not even that, it was in India, we didn't have any of that. In India, it was it was a handheld that lasted probably 6 months, and it was just all the pixel games. And
that's awesome.
And then here, I remember my cousin came over from LA, and he brought his PS1 with him, and then all these different games. And then he went back, and then he just left it at my house because he would eventually come around to our house and stay a few nights. And so he just left it at my place. And I remember, even though it was just demos, right? I didn't have an actual game. It was just,
I know exactly.
For the kids and the younger generation watching this, back then,
man.
And it's not too long ago either. I don't want to sound Asian, but when that was out, when I was in 6th grade, you actually had to purchase demos, okay? The free trials you get about games, if you ever get about games today. Back then, if you don't want to buy the game, you could buy the demos, and the demo CD would come with demos of 6-7 different games made by the same company, and it would be 5-10 minutes long each.
Yeah, if you're lucky, the first level.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember that's all I did. I literally played the same thing again and again and again and again, but it kept fun. A lot of shooting. I didn't grow up to be a shooter. All of my friends,
or ever even think about it,
even think about it.
It was never a thought in my mind.
Yeah, and then as I grew up, I got into GTA and all that stuff. And although yes, the rating system exists for a reason. If you don't want your kid to be playing a particular game,
right? And I agree with it. I agree with it. Now, we're saying that the gun violence doesn't make you violent, but I'm not saying that I want my 5-year-old niece watching this violence at such a young age.
Yeah, and think about it this way. If you're okay with a kid, whatever you're okay with, if a show or a movie was to come on and you're not okay with your kid watching it, and the game has those same contents, then obviously you can tell your kid not to play that, and that's absolutely fine.
That's your opinion. Absolutely.
That's perfectly fine. But I also played GTA, at a younger age and everything, and I had a lot of fun, running the NPCs over and stuff you do. Grand Theft Auto, what you do in GTA. I loved doing it in there, but not
fully
once.
Understanding it's a video game.
Not once did I ever think, all right, I'm going to grow up and try to do this in real life. Right? And I'm a big fan of first-person shooters, which are, you know, the shooting simulation games where it's, you know, Halo, Call of Duty, and all that stuff. And if anything, some of those games actually taught pretty good history to me, right? Like,
same, actually.
Some of these were based on World War II.
Yeah.
And they actually taught pretty good history. And
I stormed the beaches of Normandy.
Yeah. You know, we're Call of Duty vets. But no, and it's a funny topic because I grew up around that, and I still see that nowadays too, where like some parents and everyone, they're very reluctant in letting their kid have a console or a game, or let them play games because they think it's going to either make them violent or it's going to make them lazy. But I think, you know, similar to when we talked about the importance of imagination and all that, video games actually create creativity.
Yeah.
Obviously not all. Yeah, and obviously not all video games require you to be at your best mental capacity, right? Some of them are just meant to let you
GTA is a little different from The Sims.
I mean, yeah, GTA, you just sit down, you want to cool off, you could do it right there, right? It's a game you could plug on and turn off whenever you feel like it.
Absolutely.
However, I would like to contest that whenever you're playing games, you know, kids are already watching TV, right? You're already watching your tablet and all that stuff.
Right.
I honestly think playing video games is better than that, because when you're watching TV
you're
and
engaged.
You're literally sitting there not doing anything.
Yeah.
And although not all games are requiring physical exercise, although with the virtual stuff coming out, that's a big changer, because I mean, you already have Beat Saber and all these other ones that where you actually do get physically tired.
I love it.
But then you're going to have, with virtual reality, like games where you're gonna actually have to do more physical stuff. I think that's what made the Wii such a fun thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It created, it combined physicality as well as your mental capacity together, which was great. It worked you out physically and mentally.
Yeah, and honestly, it's funny you bring that up too, because it really brought my family together in a lot of different ways too.
Yeah, and we will talk about that as well.
Yeah.
But I think when you're playing a game, because there's hand-eye coordination, you're, you know, for example, I'll just tell you this. When you're playing multiplayer on Call of Duty, which for people that are not familiar with video games, is
a lot of socialism going on there.
You play online, you know, with other real-time players, you're playing together. When you're doing that, you have to really strategize, you know, especially if you are competitive. Like, you really have to think about what you're doing, and you have to really be good with your predictions and stuff like that. And I think that carries over to real life, you know, when you're trying to do problem solving. I think that is in its own form teaching you problem solving, because you have to be the winner. You have to beat the people out, and everyone is using a different tactic, and you have to find out, all right, this person keeps on doing this, or they keep on doing that. How do I get around that?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's also teaching you how to socialize. You know, especially in nowadays where you do have the pandemics and you do have all these different things happening.
Yeah.
We're becoming more and more remote. You know, I know that you don't even have to talk about today. In my experience, I have some of my best friends that I have never met, right? And they are online, that I met, you know, virtually met.
Yeah.
Back in 2009, and to this day we're still great friends. We have each other on Facebook and everything, and we're planning to meet up in real life. But you know, it was I consider myself lucky to have gone through that, because it, in a lot of times where I didn't want to talk to people here or whatever, because, you know, we had this connection. We were able to really vent out to each other anytime we have problems too. It's like, now we're like a family, you know, a family that's never met yet, but a family regardless. And
the connection is still there.
Yeah, the connection is still there, and it's crazy. And especially nowadays where kids are growing up remote, where they can't socially interact with a lot of people. I think that's actually keeping a lot of kids together.
Yeah,
is playing games, and they're able to talk on the phone.
Because I think, like as you brought up, during the pandemic, they did have that, and that allowed, like, my nephew was able to stay friends with stay connected with a lot of his friends, and that probably almost made the world of a difference to them, because it brought that normality back into the home. I'm able to still talk to my friends. We're still joking around. We're still messing around in the same way. So, yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, that, and, you know, and then the whole limitation, I get it, like, why you wouldn't want to limit how long someone can play video games, because you want them to be able to do other things too. But
right.
I think you shouldn't solely just limit playing time. You should limit screen time.
Absolutely.
Meaning, if if they're getting 6 hours of screen time and they choose it to be video games, I don't think that's bad.
Right. No,
because screen time, they're gonna.
Now, let's not go too extreme to where, you know, I guess I just seen on the news recently, China had to crack down to where the kids are only allowed maybe an hour or two on a Saturday, and that's it.
Yeah.
No other time during weekdays or anything like that.
Yeah, and
I don't agree with that necessarily.
Yeah, and speaking of that's to the max. Like, you know, the belief people have here about how video games are mentally, you know, it's stopping the learning progression of kids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
China just took it to the max, and they just believe whatever they want. And
Whatever
it's not just China, but I think
were.
that's just any nation. You're going to have some nations more strict than others, but just know that, you know, playing those games, if I didn't have the gaming experience growing up, like I said, there's a lot of times you go through some bullshit in life.
Yeah.
And I would just play a game and forget about it. It was a form of meditation, if you will. And I think it's very important. And I think it's very narrow-minded to just say, yeah, if you play games, you're not going to be successful. Or
right. And also to kind of think that it's just for children.
Yeah.
Because even now, I'm a construction mechanic. I come home from a hard day's work, and one of my favorite things of the day is turning that Xbox on and saying hello to my, I've got a buddy in Colorado we've talked to for many, many years. Got a buddy that I've, known here in town, but he's got kids, he's got work, we can never really meet up. So that's our way of being able to hang out,
Yeah.
And that's still one of my biggest,
Yeah,
highlights.
and then when people are like, oh, playing games causes your eyesights to go bad and all that, I'm like, again,
balance.
That kid is going to be watching TV and everything anyways, right? Like, I doubt that you people or anyone tells their kid, oh yeah, you can't watch TV at all. I just don't think it's fair that if, a kid is watching TV and then you're okay with that, and I've seen some parents that let their kids watch rated R movies but are not okay with them playing games because they're scared it's going to teach them something bad, that it's going to promote violence and stuff like that, when in reality, like I said, I think games are a little bit more aware of the content they provide than the movies and the shows.
Yeah. Well, and I think the lack of understanding is kind of the fear factor as well when it comes to parenting. They understand movies, so they'll allow it. They don't understand the video game world, and they hear these negative aspects and stereotypes. So yeah, I think it's just a lack of understanding.
And think about it, like when you're playing a game, man, you are put into this fictional world. It's like,
literally.
Again, not every game, but majority of the games nowadays, especially games like Last of Us and stuff like that, where you are put into this world. It's like reading a book, but it's a visual book.
Exactly.
And you're controlling the narrative rather than just watching the narrative. And I think that's really, really cool, and it teaches your kids interaction, it teaches your kid to be, and I think that has a lot to do with it, right? The choices you get to make in these games, and it's like, okay, it's teaching problem solving, it's teaching all of these different things that you don't get just from watching a TV show.
Yeah. Video games are a lot more advanced these days. You literally can be considered good or evil if you make certain choices, moral choices on these video games.
Yeah, and you might be asking, like, what's the point of making this particular podcast for the topic? Well, the thing is, it's very personal to me.
Of course.
And I see that. And although not everyone is aware, but there have been fights in Congress about certain games, and if gaming is good, and it's like, government, awesome, but government control over everything,
no,
not awesome.
No.
And I think it's and then also the the parents raising kids that are skeptical about games because they never played it, because they just heard these things. I think you're doing your kid a disservice, because you also have to think about it this way. The next day, the kid is going to go to class, and his friends are talking about video games. And whether you like it or not, it is a part of life now. Video games are part of life, not because they're brainless function, but because they're actually fun. And like you mentioned, it's not just friends to friends. Sometimes it's families. I remember when I used to, when I had my PS3 just a decade ago, and my sisters, they never really played too many games growing up, but the storytelling was so great. It was Uncharted 2 that I was particularly playing, which now they're making a series or a movie. They recently made a crappy movie of.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't a fan either.
I mean, if you liked it, that's cool, and I feel sorry for you, but when they make these movies and shows off of these video games, and then I don't know, and you have to experience it yourself to understand the frustration, because it's like watching the narrative versus comparing controlling the narrative. But at the same time, the narrative they have in video games is also sometimes 20 plus hours long, so it's more dished out. It's amazing, and it's like a continuous book. It's like reading 20 chapters of something, versus a movie where it's like, they're going for the casual Hollywood thing. All right, let's go ahead and put this together. All right, we're gonna make it about action. We're gonna make it about. It's like it takes away the heart.
Wrap it up. Yeah, no, exactly.
And so that's my kind of frustration there. And but my sisters, they used to watch me play, and they used to be glued to it, man. And it created a bond of us. That was our bonding time. It was something I loved, and then something that they ended up loving too, right? And it's not like they're gamers now. I'm still a gamer, but guess what? Their thoughts and their mind about what gaming is completely different than it would have been if they never spent that time with me. And now my nephew, he's free to play games, and obviously we make sure he plays games appropriate for his age. He's 9, he can't play GTA or anything like that. But if Doom, just a straight up shooter, it has like blood and all that stuff, but it's literally, you see it in shows and you see it in movies and everything. It's like, that's fine, and it's made him happier. It's made us happier. In fact, he interacts with me about, hey, I went through this. Sometimes, hey, can you help me with this level? It's created a different type of bonding with us too. And then his friends, he plays with his friends, and through the pandemic, like your nephew, they played online, they kept their friendship, and then when they met each other at the school, they were great. And go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, in video games, they'll kind of teach you teamwork
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yes.
And importantly, failure, because you're gonna die, you're gonna lose, you're gonna mess up, you're going to...
We're talking about in the game.
Right. Not in life. Hey, in life too, though.
In life, eventually, but we're talking about the failure.
It helps you, kind of cushion that fear of failure in the more real life situations by failing virtually over and over again until you learn the success and the route of success and how worth it was.
Yeah, and I think the whole teamwork aspect is very underrated too. I mean, yeah, there's some games that don't require it. A lot of them do end up just being brainless things if they're multiplayer, like, oh, just go shoot them. But then if you really want to win, you do have to do cooperative.
Yeah.
And it does create teamwork, and it teaches you that you're not the only contributor when it comes to it. And I think, that all I'm saying, like, the point of this podcast is...
Of our gaming rant.
It's a gaming rant, man. I'm venting about... Because I think recently there was something going on with... the lawmakers talking about video games and how it's impact, and I think if I were to be honest with you, a lot of these officials, it's all about what they can make profits off of, right? Like, what industries?
Let's be honest.
What industries benefit them, not necessarily benefit us. I mean, it's sad, but that's the reality of it, And if you're a parent or, a guardian, or, you have this view of video games being bad, all I recommend is give it a try. Try playing it with your kids. Try playing it with... I guarantee you...
I'll forever remember playing Wii with my dad. Forever.
It will. It will create memories, and you could be frustrated that it's not the childhood you had. Like, in terms of not that you're jealous, but it's just you grew up differently. That's perfectly fine, but just know that life is about evolution, and we're at the evolution where video games have become a household thing.
Technology is
on our fingertips. Literally, we have a computer in our hand, right? Our phones.
At all times.
And although it's a luxury and everything, it's a tool that can be used to create social bonds. And so let's not put a negative light on stuff like this, and let's just see what's the best we can get out of it. And like I said, trust me, you will create some special memories if you were to just stop trying to worry about, is my kid learning bad stuff, versus like if you were just be like, all right, kid, I'm just going to play with you. Trust me, you will have memories, and they will have memories that neither of you can forget. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out this episode. See you all next week. Goodbye.
Thank you.